It's kind of felt like Mark Stoops has run his course at Kentucky, and now it sounds like he might be in position to coach elsewhere.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, and on today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, we're going to talk about Mark Stoops maybe being a candidate to go coach at Virginia Tech. Could the Wildcats be moving on from Stoops, and will they have to pay anything for it? Going to dive into that on today's show, as well as should we be worried? Should we be worried at all about Jayden Quaintance after hearing what Mark Stoops had to say about him yesterday during SEC Media Days? And then to wrap up the show, going to talk a little bit about bracketology because it's updated and Kentucky's moved up, as I think they should have, at least earlier this offseason. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. You can download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. If you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel or the podcast feed, I would greatly appreciate it if you did so. Trying to push past now 18,000 subscribers, trying to get to 20K. Thank you so much to everybody who has joined up. All right, so Mark Stoops, as we all know, it kind of feels like he's run his course here at Kentucky with the failure last season and the failure, frankly, the season before that with Will Levis in his second year, if I'm not mistaken. And here we are now off to a horrendous start this year. You've got Texas here this weekend, probably not going to be the prettiest game in the world. Don't expect Kentucky to be able to move the ball much, if at all. Not a lot of life in this program right now, and that's coming from the fans, that's coming from the people inside it. Everyone just kind of seems apathetic and slow and just kind of done with where everything is at with head coach Mark Stoops. Bush Hamdan has been fired. That does nothing for Kentucky. The offense is not going to get better. Cutter Boley is not going to improve in this system because he's not going to really have any quality coaching or opportunity to truly develop in this current situation. There is zero hope for this program right now. And the worst part about it is that it doesn't seem like Kentucky is in a position to move on from Mark Stoops. They are not in a position to fire their head coach because of how much money it's going to cost to get rid of him. And then all of a sudden, a report about a day or so ago coming out of, I believe it's Virginia Tech's 24/7 page, 10 different coaches, or I believe it was actually 8. They put out an article talking about 8 different coaches that Virginia Tech could potentially pursue, talking about names that have been thrown around behind the scenes. So this is not speculation. This is actual reporting. And this is the quote from that article. Speaking of Sumrall's potential interest in Kentucky, which, by the way, John Sumrall, interested in Kentucky, an interesting name is being tossed around behind the scenes. Longtime Kentucky head coach Mark Stoops. A rough start to the 2025 season and only 2 double-digit win seasons in 12 completed years has Kentucky rumored to be considering a change. Stoops possesses a 47.6% win percentage during his tenure. Kentucky is not the easiest place to build a program, but Stoops has done that well. They have appeared in a bowl game every year from 2016 to 2023 in a display of notable consistency. He has recruited well, though there is growing concern about a lack of in-state recruits and declining on-field results. Stoops' tenure at Kentucky has been mired in controversy, from questionable decision-making to a revolving door of offensive coordinators to a public feud with former men's basketball coach John Calipari. He's been on the receiving end of a lot of criticism. Even former players are beginning to call for a head coaching change. Could Virginia Tech provide the fresh start that Stoops needs? I had long been under the impression that if Mark Stoops was going to leave for another job, if he was going to leave Kentucky to go coach as a head coach elsewhere, it would be to Iowa. Obviously, because of the connections that he has there. Would Virginia Tech be willing to come in here and pay up for a head coach that is declining rapidly in the SEC? Are they willing to cough up the money to take him from the Wildcats? Because here's my thought process. Texas A&M had this in the bag a couple of years ago. They had it. Do you know why they had it? It's because they had the money and the resources to pull Kentucky's head coach from Kentucky. Let's be honest with ourselves here. The football program is not the basketball program. This is not a football school. This is a basketball school. Unlike what Stoops tried to tell you a couple of years ago, unlike what Paul Feinbaum tried to tell you a couple of years ago, this is a basketball school, always has been, always will be. If Texas A&M comes knocking on the door and says, hey, we want your head coach, here's all the money to do it, Stoops is gone. Absolutely, he is gone. He's one of the 10 highest paid coaches in America right now. With understanding what's going on behind the scenes at Virginia Tech, with how they are trying to manage their finances and how they're trying to generate revenue, I can tell you they don't have the money to pay Mark Stoops what he's making currently to be a failure. If I were Virginia Tech, I wouldn't touch Mark Stoops. And frankly, I don't think that they are capable of doing so, because if I'm Mark Stoops, I'm looking at this and saying, man, I'm making, what is it, $8 million plus a year, something like that. They can't afford to pay me $8 million a year. They can't afford to pay what I'm getting here. Why would I leave to go rebuild a program when I've already built this program and I don't care if it's failing? You know, I'm just going to sit here and make money and not really try as hard, anymore, I don't think. And just kind of ride off into the sunset until Kentucky decides to pay my buyout. Because I'm going to be worth millions and millions and millions of dollars at the end of the day, one way or another. So I'll continue enjoying what I do, running a football program into the ground, or, I'll get bought out and I'll get that money. One way or another, he's going to get his money. Unless he just absolutely wants to leave, I don't think that Virginia Tech is going to be the place that he ends up. It's just not. If Iowa comes calling, if Kirk Ferentz retires, I could absolutely see him making a move there. But I don't think that's happening right now. It's not. So Kentucky, I think for worse, is stuck. There is no hope. There is no hope. The best thing that we can do as fans is continue to pull for the team, the players, and then turn our attention to basketball season because it's already here. It's already here. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments below. All right, should we be worried about Jayden Quaintance? Based on what Mark Pope said, almost said Mark Stoops, based on what Mark Pope said yesterday, there might be a little bit of concern. And I really don't like what he had to say about it, but everything else outside of yesterday has indicated that Quaintance is going to be ready to play. We'll talk about all of that in just a second. Before we do it, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at Wayfair. The holidays are going to be here before you know it, which is really exciting, but getting your home ready for guests and celebrations can feel like a lot, right? Maybe your serveware needs a refresh, or the guest room could use new bedding. Wayfair has everything you need to get your home holiday ready, from Christmas trees and wreaths to bedding, cookware, outdoor inflatables. It's your one-stop shop for every room in the house. Wayfair makes it easy to personalize your home for the holidays with a huge selection for every style and budget. And with free and easy delivery, even on the big stuff, you can get everything you need without the hassle of huge delivery fees. Instead of stressing about getting the house ready, you can actually enjoy the holidays with friends and family. Get organized, refreshed, and ready for the holidays with way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. All right, continuing along here on today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. Really appreciate you guys tuning in. Not the most exciting thing to talk about here as we open the show with Mark Stoops possibly going to Virginia Tech. I definitely think it's not possible, I would say, basically at all. It's kind of a negative because of where we want the football program to be, right? We want them to be successful. We want them to win. But as of right now, doesn't really seem like there's any hope for that to happen. Who knows? Kentucky could upset Texas this weekend. Kentucky could upset Texas this weekend. I just don't. I don't really see how that still moves the needle for the Wildcats, right? So let's talk about basketball here for a little bit. This is a negative turned positive here. Should we be worried about Jayden Quaintance? Well, let's take a look at what Mark Stoops had to say about him yesterday. In Birmingham, SEC Media Days went down, and obviously JQ was brought up, asking what the timeline is for his return, and talked about kind of what he said during the pro day about a week or so ago about how, he's rehabbing at an insane rate, basically regurgitated the exact same thing that he said a week or so ago. Nothing new, nothing special. But the thing that bothered me, and I really hate this quote from Pope, is he said, "I'm not exactly sure of how long of a wait it is, but I don't think there is a chance we could keep him from playing this season. He's too talented. He's worked too hard." Why do I hate that quote from Mark Pope? Well, it reminds me a lot of the crap that John Calipari used to spew when it came to injured players. Super ambiguous, and it leaves everybody out of the dark. Now, I'm not asking Mark Pope to sit here and tell me every single little nuanced detail of what's going on behind the scenes at the University of Kentucky with their men's basketball program. And I'm not sitting here telling him, email me the chart of the day-by-day breakdown of when you think that Jayden Quaintance is going to be ready to play. I want a little bit more than just, hey, there's no chance he doesn't play this year, because everything up until this point has been pointing towards, okay, JQ's not only going to play, but he's rehabbing so quickly that he's probably going to be ready to play much sooner than we thought, right? I really don't like he's going to play this season. I don't know. I haven't seen him type stuff that Cal used to do. But obviously, I think Pope, the cadence is different. The presentation's different, so it's more palatable. But it doesn't change the fact that I really don't like the pivot from, oh, he's rehabbing like crazy. He's going out there asking to dunk. He's participating in non-contact stuff now. He's basically fully healthy in both legs. The balance is there. The strength is there. He's incredible. He's ready to go. Obviously, we're going to try and be as patient as possible with this. But he's going to play at some point this season. I don't know. He's too good to keep him off the court for the entire year, right, guys? No, I don't like that at all. I really don't like that at all, because there is like the off chance that we end up looking up in January and we go, where the hell is Jayden Quaintance? Where is the player that we were the most excited about to bring in this offseason? You look up midway through the SEC slate, pulling up KenPom for the schedule here. Let's say in the non-con, you lose to Louisville, you lose to Michigan State, you beat North Carolina, you lose to Gonzaga, you beat Indiana, you lose to St. John's, you only win like 2 of your 6 big-time games there. And you're looking up going, okay, we could have really used some interior defense in all of those contests. Where is Jayden Quaintance? We look up in January, we lose to Alabama, we somehow lose to Missouri at home, and we're not ranked. We're struggling out the gate in SEC play, and we're going, where's our superstar? Where is the guy that's supposed to plug all the holes on defense and solve all of our problems? So I expect, if they really wanted to, if they really, really, really wanted to, I think that he could play game 1. I really do. Just based on looking at him, I think that Quaintance could be good for 10 to 15 minutes against Nichols. I think he could. I think he could play against Louisville. Does that mean the staff is going to play him? I don't know. My concern is that they are going into this saying, okay, we've got a basically healthy superstar now, but let's hold off too long. In my terms, too long, but let's hold off longer than we need to really make sure that he's fully healthy. And we look up, and by that St. John's game, we're sitting there either unranked or like really struggling defensively on the interior. And like, it's like, okay, now let's put him in when we could have put him in during the Michigan State game, right? That is the thing that continues to concern me. Now, again, I am still under the belief that he will be able to play against Louisville. I am still under that belief because everything else up until this media days quote has indicated he's going to be ready pretty early. In fact, he could probably go. He could probably go. If this was the NCAA tournament, you bet he'd be playing. I just really think that what Kentucky does in this non-conference slate to gel as a team is going to be really important, because throwing a guy in basically halfway into the year and like there's going to be growing pains with that. And so getting him in as early as possible, I think is going to be awesome. The positive here is that I'm still believing that he's going to be ready early. I hate this quote. I really don't like this quote at all. And then the other thing that I do want to point out here real quick, Otega Oweh is back, like fully practicing. Pope mentioned that. He's taken off basically from the free throw line on dunks, on breakaway stuff. He's playing very aggressively. The staff's a little bit worried, but he's back there and he's fully healthy. So to have one of your superstars back is incredible. So at least you have that going for you. We'll see what the staff says about JQ coming up. And who knows, maybe Brandon Garrison evolves into an average to above average rim protector, to go back to kind of what he was doing at Oklahoma State in terms of blocks, in terms of defensive rating, different things like that. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. So, all right, let's talk a little bit about bracketology. Look forward, look ahead to what Kentucky could be this season. I'll go ahead and tell you, if they don't have JQ, they're not going to match the seed line that Joe Lunardi currently thinks they will. We'll dive into that in just a second. Before we do it, though, tell you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. The NFL season's here. FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss, because right now, new customers can bet just $5 buckaroos, $5, get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me a ton of different ways to play. Parlays, player props, followed live lines during the games. I really enjoy using it for keeping track with my fantasy team. Kind of keeps me going week after week, despite my fantasy team not doing so well. It makes it more exciting, more engaging to kind of get in on the action when I've got something riding, right? Whether you're a casual fan or you really love diving into the stats like I do, FanDuel makes the game day experience just so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Today's episode is also brought to you by Game Time. College football is here. It is absolutely incredible. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real, actually getting tickets to some of these games can feel like more of a battle than the actual game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, right? It's the app that gives advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees, because what you see is what you pay. I can pull up Game Time, and in just a couple of taps, I see amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite college football teams, whether that's Kentucky or you want to go see another team play, for as low as $25. The app makes it super simple. I can see my exact same view for my seat before buying, and this is true for any event, right? I've talked about how I'm really excited to go to the Gonzaga game in December. I use Game Time for that. The seat views look great on the app, and I know they're going to look even better in person. And you can take the guesswork out of buying all of your college football tickets with Game Time by downloading the Game Time app, creating an account, and using code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, wrapping up today's episode. Really appreciate you guys tuning in. Let's talk a little bit about bracketology here. So it's kind of going to be a little bit of a sour note to kind of go back to what we were talking about with JQ. Kentucky is rising in the latest bracketology ratings, I should say. Bracketology from Joe Lunardi. Jeez, this has been a weird show. Anyway, Joe Lunardi putting out his official preseason bracketology. Houston is the number one overall seed. The first team out is Indiana. That's shocking. Last team in is Villanova. I just disagree with that as a whole. Washington is in this field over somebody like Indiana and Maryland. I just, and Georgia and A&M are in the next 4 out. I disagree with some of this, man. But let me tell you what's the most interesting thing is that Joe Lunardi actually decided to move Kentucky up after having moved them down this offseason for BYU. The Wildcats are now back as a 2 seed in this bracketology alongside St. John's, Michigan, and UConn as the 2 seeds. Florida, Houston, Duke, Purdue are all number 1s. Isn't it awesome, by the way? You can just look across these 1 and 2 seed lines and see matchups that Kentucky's going to have to play this year. On your 3 seed line, like I mentioned, BYU, you've also got Tennessee, disgusting. Louisville, disgusting. UCLA also here as well. Just a lot of really big-time matchups that the Wildcats are going to have here, especially on their non-con slate. But here's the problem. I think Kentucky at full health is a 2 seed. I think they absolutely are, if not a 1, depending on how things go this year. But if Jayden Quaintance is not playing in the non-con, Kentucky's not going to be a 2 seed come March. It's not happening. There is no chance that Kentucky runs the gamut of St. John's, Indiana, Gonzaga, North Carolina, Michigan State, Louisville. There's no chance that they run that and come out on top like 4-2 or better or whatever. That's not happening. They need Jayden Quaintance out there to perform defensively. I don't think that Malachi Marino and Brandon Garrison can hold it down at like Kentucky needs them to against some of these big-time teams. That doesn't mean Marino and Garrison are bad. It doesn't mean that they're bad players. It doesn't mean that they can't grow. I'm saying right now, based on what we've seen, what should be your third-string center is probably going to have to play a decent chunk of minutes as a freshman. Now, I know the reports out of practice are that Malachi's been playing really good and that he's got a lot of intensity and that defensively he's great and all this stuff. I want to see it before I change my opinion, because right now, I'm not going to expect a 6'10", 6'11" center, and don't you dare come at me with the 7-foot stuff. He's 6'11". I'm not going to sit here and expect him to go out there and perform defensively the way that Kentucky needs him to off the jump. I don't think it's fair to expect that of him. It's not a knock on his game in its current state. It's more of a, how is that fair to expect that of him? Also, how is it fair to expect BG to go out there and be some world star defender whenever you've already brought in a lottery pick to do that? Like, he was supposed to be the secondary option defensively, right? So while both Marino and Garrison may be really good at a lot of different things at the current stages of their career, you brought in the best defender in the nation and he's not going to play. There's just no way you're going to be able to plug holes, barring some serious development from these guys that we just haven't seen. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll eat crow. Maybe Kentucky plays really well at the rim against some of these teams. But I'm going to need to see it first. So the bracketology is really awesome. It's really exciting if Kentucky's healthy. But there is no chance that they're a 2 seed if they let Jayden Quaintance sit out for about half the season. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On UK. You can follow me on Twitter at @LanceDawe_, and follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, leave those in the YouTube comments below. Hit me on the socials. I will see you all tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And God bless.